Hello, CFCC students. To start off today's video, I have a question. Are you, are any of y'all like me and struggle when someone just gives you a gift for no reason? Uh, I mean, of course, I appreciate the gift, and a lot of times, you just it makes you feel excited and appreciated and loved. But I'm talking about those times where it's like you have nothing to give back. Those are the moments I struggle with. For Lauren, one of her ways to show people love is giving gifts, and she'll do them randomly. She'll, there's times where she'll give me a gift, and there's no anniversary or no really any reason for it except for she just wanted to show me that she loved me or that she appreciated me. I always in those moments I appreciate it, but at the same time I always like, man, how can I repay you? Um, are any of y'all like that? Because that's how I am with God too, with God's grace. It says in the Bible that God's grace is a gift, and we did nothing to deserve it. He did it because He loves us, and I struggle with that. And the reason I struggle with that is the whole idea again of, you know, I didn't deserve this. I want to somehow pay you back. I want to earn this gift. And if you live like that with God's grace, you're going to live very frustrated. Um, I was in Galveston this weekend fishing, and just to let y'all know, I didn't catch anything. Um, that's normally how my fishing experiences go. But I was driving along the seawall, and with everything closed, all the beaches are closed, and it's amazing to look at the beach with no people on it and just see the waves crashing in to the beach. And I was looking at that, and I was reminded of a song. You may be really familiar with it, where there's a line in it that says, "If your grace is an ocean, we are all sinking." And I began to look at the water, at the ocean in this way. I was just like, what if this is really what God's grace is like? And so, I even like there was a part of the beach that was open to the house we were staying at. So I walked out on the beach and I was just reminded, first off, how God says that the waves can't go any further than He allows. And so it was kind of cool to sit there and look at the edge of the waves and be like, God's command is here. These waves are crashing and they're stopping right past me, or they cover my feet and then they stop. Wherever they land, God has commanded that they cannot go any further than that. And that was it's amazing to kind of think about that God's command is right there, His desire, His will, and then I began to look at the ocean like, what if this was God's grace? And as I stood there with my feet in the water, my ankles covered, I began to realize this is what I do with God's grace, and probably many of us do with God's grace. God's grace is like this ocean that, obviously I could not swim the entire ocean. There's no way I could handle the ocean. Uh, But what I do is I stick my feet in. It's cold. You feel the waves kind of hit against your ankles, and you're like, wow, feels really good. But as you walk along the beach, you kind of forget about it. The sun's hot and you're burning up, and that's what we do with God's grace. Sometimes we go in feet deep. We feel God's grace there. We're like, oh, that's great. I really appreciate God's grace here, but what God desires for us is to know His grace fully. Like if I went into the ocean deeper and deeper, up to my neck, up to my head, the waves would start crashing over me. I would become overwhelmed at that point. I could not handle the tides. I couldn't fight against the waves. At some point, it would become a struggle in the ocean. But let's turn it into a good thing. If we went in God's grace His mercy, His forgiveness, His love, if we went in full force, if we just went deeper and deeper and made sure we were covered from head to toe, that we just continued to know God's grace and we allowed it to overwhelm us and allowed it to consume us, there would never be any questions about, does God love us? There would never be any questions of, am I really forgiven? Uh, does God really, has God really put my sins as far as the east is from the west? Like, there wouldn't be those questions because we would be so consumed with God's grace. Like, we would be so overwhelmed because there's so much more grace than we could ever sin. What I think God is trying to grow us in today is, one, too many of us are just standing on the shores of God's grace. We're standing in the the water where it's up to our ankles. Yes, it feels good, but we're going to quickly forget about it and start questioning. What God wants us to do is go deeper and to understand it more, because it really is overwhelming to think that God's grace can forgive all my sins, past, present, and future, that He will always love me, and that there's grace for every person, every situation, that we can't run out of it. But too many of us don't understand that. We don't truly comprehend it, and God's asking us to go deeper into His grace, into those ways. And now, to address kind of the first part, a lot of times why we don't go in deeper into God's grace and allow it to consume us and to overwhelm us in a very positive way, maybe it's because you're like me and you're like, I have a hard time just accepting this free gift. And I mean, that's my struggle. I do struggle with, God, I did nothing to deserve this. But rest in that. And that's a part of God's grace, is we have to just rest in the fact that, yes, we didn't deserve it, but He chose us and He loves us, and He didn't do it out of spite, or He didn't do it begrudgingly. He did it because He wanted to. He loved us. And that's just such an amazing thing with our God. That He wanted to do that. So, because He wanted to give that to us, because He says, here's all this grace, He wants us to fully, He wants us to go in further than just, uh, feeling it once in a while and forgetting about it the rest of the week. He wants us just to live in this grace constantly. I mean, there's so many, like, for me, it was, if I messed up, I would beat myself over it for days. I would be so upset with myself. That's not living in God's grace. Living in God's grace is repenting, where it's like, I'm living in this space. I don't want to live in my sin. I don't want to keep on sinning. I'm repenting. I'm turning towards God, and I'm saying, God, forgive me. And it's knowing that you are forgiven immediately because of how much grace there is when Jesus died on that cross for us. It's such an amazing gift, grace. And I wanted to keep this video very short for y'all, because I want y'all to discuss this topic more fully. I didn't want y'all spending so much time watching me. I want y'all to actually talk about what grace means in your life. How you're maybe not experiencing grace as much as you could, or how could you experience it in a better way if you don't know how. Maybe it's, what is grace? I want y'all now to spend some time, have fun, catch up with people. I know we've been locked up in our houses for a while, but take some time to seriously consider God's grace for your life and for the people around you, because not only is this grace for us, it's for everyone that we come into contact with. And if we truly understood grace and what the impact it's made for us, we will want everyone to experience this. Because if God's grace is an ocean, we wouldn't stand a chance, right? We would be consumed, overwhelmed. But that's an amazing thing. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoy your group time. Love y'all, and we miss you.